nobody's denying how great LeBron is. A lot of us have him number 2 all the time, which is
yes.
How many players who's ever played the game to be number 2? That's a solid spot.
Yeah.
And we've seen LeBron do some extraordinary things in his time. But then we've seen him do some extraordinarily bad things. Like he just wasn't.
We've seen him look very weak and fragile at points also.
Yeah. And I was explaining that when my Pistons were prominent in the Eastern Conference, that LeBron was always in the back of my mind until he took over that one game in the Eastern Conference Finals and he became scary at one point. Okay, you got my attention now, LeBron. But for a good 4 years, all right, I see LeBron. He's LeBron. But I was worried about the Pacers. Boston. I was worried about the Bulls. I was worried about Boston. That's who I was worried about as a Pistons fan. I was not worried about LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers for a good 4 years.
You were more worried about D Rose, right?
I was worried about D Rose and what's the other dude? It was another guy on the Bulls. I can't remember his name.
Dark skinned dude or white dude?
Dark skinned dude. And a white dude too. Yeah, Gordon. And
Heinrich and Gordon.
Heinrich. Heinrich. Yeah, Heinrich Gordon and D Rose. I was worried about them guys.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's who I was worried about. I wasn't worried about
I remember
LeBron.
that.
Like, bring LeBron on. Let's get him up out of the way. And let's get on to the Bulls. Let's get the Pacers.
You know what's crazy, right? Bron came into the league when the league had a lot of Jordan residue on it. It was still playing like Jordan's league. You know what I mean? And throughout that time, he was an exciting player to watch. He's fun to watch. He was. Nobody was really worried about him. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. This whole where he ended up at in history, you knew it was possible, but it just wasn't. It wasn't a guarantee. Like, you know what I'm saying?
He still had to cut through Tracy McGrady. He still had to cut through Vince Carter. He still had to cut through Kobe Bryant, which in some people's opinion, he's still trying to cut through Kobe Bryant's legacy.
Yeah.
He had a lot of guys to cut through to get to where he's at. And for those who've seen him come in from day one, as adults, not as kids, you know what I'm saying, idolizing the guy, we're looking at him as, okay, you're almost peer level with us, younger than us. You know, as far as, all right, we're going to see where this goes. But I was not worried about you for a good 4 straight years until you actually showed something like, all right, well, okay, we got something here. And then he made it to the finals, just like a AI made it to the finals with a bunch of nobodies and lost. Yeah. But I'm not going to give LeBron credit for taking his team to the finals and losing. Just as much credit as we give AI for making it to the finals and losing. I give LeBron James the same credit as being a superstar on your team, taking your team to the finals and losing. And you got swept. He got swept, right? At least AI got one.
He got swept.
At least AI got one.
Yeah, he got one.
Kobe and Shaq.
Yeah.
Against Kobe and Shaq.
Prime Kobe, prime Shaq. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing.
Making a statement. Still iconic in your loss.
That's an iconic
Nothing LeBron did was iconic in his loss.
Nah. But see, that's what the thing is. We remember that version of him. Like, when he was just another, I hate to call him another player because he was more than another player, but he was kind of just another player in the league. He was like another really good player in the league, and he had a lot of hype and interest in him, but he wasn't the man yet. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so we all just kind of remember that version where he was another one of the top guys in the league, but he wasn't the top guy. Like, you know, so
yeah.
I watched him be just good in the league all the way through the 2000s and stuff. Mm-hmm. He didn't really come into his own until the Miami years.
Yeah.
And then even in the Miami years, he went 2 out of 4. In what I would say is probably the greatest team ever put together at that point in time.
Yeah,
what'd you say?
For sure. I said, and look weak 2 times. Look very weak 2 times.
Yes. And now, look, Bron created the super team. Boston might get credit for the super team, but up until that point, no team had ever compiled a group of all-stars together or former all-stars in their prime. Mm-hmm. Miami was the first to ever get 3 dudes in their prime. Before that, you might have got an old Barkley and an old Pippen teaming with Drexler.
I'm not even saying Ray Allen was in his prime at that point. Ray Allen wasn't prime Ray Allen at that point.
In Boston?
Yeah, in Boston. He was in prime.
No, he wasn't. And KG wasn't either.
KG
Look, them boys, think of it this way. Boston came together in 2007. KG was drafted in 95. He's 12 years in the league at this point in time.
Yeah.
96 is when Ray Allen came in the league. 11 years in the league. Paul Pierce was the only one in his prime during that team. So that team was scary, but they were over the hill. You know what I'm saying? Like they still had something left in the tank.
Yeah, they weren't under 10 years in the league. 6 and 7 years in the league.
No, they were on the last part of they time in the league at that point in time. But they had stuff left in the tank. But Miami was nobody had ever seen 3 guys all-stars come together in their prime. So that team went 2 for 4 when Bron was the king of the league and still lost twice to some teams they probably shouldn't have lost to. You know what I mean? Like, so all these go towards him looking very human to the people who live throughout this. Great player, but we just seen him look human way too often.
Way too often.
In moments he shouldn't have looked human. Like,
And here's the thing is, like, they talk about the physicality in the 80s and the 90s, right? And LeBron looked human without the physicality. And I know a lot of these 2020s guys or late 2010s guys hate hearing about the physicality of the league in the 90s and the 80s. But to be able to be skilled enough to navigate through those tough waters, those brute waters, and it still gets your game off, that says something. Just like we saw the All-Star game just this past last month or whatever, right? And we saw them score 200-some points. You can score 200 points when there's lack of defense, or the game is called in a way that allows you to do certain things that you couldn't get away with 20, 30 years ago. You can score 200 points.
Yeah, these are professionals shooting the basketball.
Yeah, you can get your game off, but the game being played the way it's being played, when it's hands off, where people are sagging back to where there's no deterrence from coming into the lane. There's no deterrence for even just taking a jump shot, because you take a jump shot, you're going to come down on something, and somebody's going to let you know to make it next time you touch the ball, it's going to be a problem. Like, that still takes some kind of skill and resolve to be able to get your game off with the game being physical. It still takes a level of skill to be able to navigate those waters. When you don't have those obstacles to have to play against, you can get your game off and you can go get triple doubles like it's nobody's business. So the game is played differently. So I hate when people try to, it's because nobody wrestling you and throwing elbows at you. Yeah, okay, there were some less skilled guys on the team there just to be muscle. But to be great through that, that's still, you got to give a nod to it. I don't see how you not give a nod to it. Because anybody can go in the park and play by themselves and do all the moves and get off on a game and score 40, 50 points every single night and be straight. Yep.
Look at this. Bron caught a glimpse of it. He caught a glimpse of it in the early 2000s. That's why he was mentally broken by Boston and he was mentally broken by Detroit.
Ooh, yeah.
He caught a glimpse of it. We saw him look regular against those teams. So we see a glimpse of what he would have looked like in the 90s. Really good player and could be mentally broken. It could be mentally broken. You know what I'm saying? Like
when you had my Pistons team holding you to 60, 68 points in the whole game, you were still LeBron. You was a younger LeBron, a more athletic LeBron.
Yeah.
And your team still only scored 65 points against my team. Yeah. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah. So now all of a sudden, because y'all can go for 100 points a game, Bron is shooting better now, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Like all of a sudden his statistics are better. Are you telling me that he ain't putting up more points because the league didn't get a little easier to score in? Luka himself came out and said, hey, man, it's easier to score in this NBA than it is the European League.
European League.
He was averaging 16 points in the European League, came to the NBA and became a force. What does that tell you?
Like, hey,